How's it going, trainers, and welcome to another Pokemon Go PvP video. Today we're going to be going over the Sinister Cup and the general meta. As you can see, it includes Ghost, Psychic, Steel, and Fighting type Pokemon. Dark subtyping Pokemon are banned from the cup, such as Spiritomb and Sableye, for example. Mythical Pokemon like Defense Form Deoxys are banned. Skarmory is banned, and Hypno is banned. Of course, as always, Pokemon under CP 1500. And yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into a Meta Simplified guide infographic. Starting things off, you could see that there are a lot of arrows, so do not get overwhelmed. There's truly only 4 categories. On the top left you have Ghost types, top right you have Confusion users, bottom right Fighters, and bottom left the Steel types. Each of them have either a set way of which they perform or a different variation of fast or charge attacks that allow them to do multiple roles. But in general, the Ghost types not only are super effective against themselves, but are great against the Confusion users. The Confusion users are great against the Fighters. Fighters are great against the Steel types, and Steel types are great against the Ghost types. As you can see, kind of faded out in the center there, you can see Alolan Raichu and Lugia. Those I have kind of out of category. They're outside the meta picks or wild card picks. We will go in depth into each of these categories and each Pokemon in these categories as far as their movesets and a little bit of what their role is. So let's go ahead and jump on into that. First off, we have the Ghost types. The Ghost type roles, of course, are to do good against the Fighters and the Confusion users. However, one of these 4 types are sub-poison, being Haunter, so Haunter pretty much just gets melted by the Confusion users specifically. Otherwise, they all do really good against the Fighters, and don't have to watch out for much. Drifblim will need the fast move Hex, and then the charge moves Shadow Ball and Ominous Wind. And what's great against this Pokemon is Ominous Wind gives you the chance for a stat buff, so that is always a great opportunity. Dusclops would need Hex, Shadow Punch, and Fire Punch. The Fire Punch gives you coverage against the Steel types, so that's awesome. Haunter, Shadow Claw, Shadow Punch, and Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball being a Legacy charge move. If you don't have Legacy Haunter, I would recommend not using it in this cup. So you're going to need that Legacy Shadow Ball Haunter if you want Haunter in this meta. Otherwise, Haunter is great for killing other Ghost types as well as handling the Fighters. Next up, we have Alolan Marowak. And now thanks to yesterday's moveset release, we have 2 different fast moves that you can use, either Hex or Fire Spin. Either way, you're going to want Shadow Ball and Bone Club. But what Hex does for you is it allows you to do well against the Confusion users and opposing Ghost types, or Fire Spin gives you coverage against Steel types. Next up we have the Confusion users. Now there are quite a few of these. I included 6 in this meta. You got Cresselia with Confusion, Moonblast, and Aurora Beam. You could also go with Future Sight as well, but I feel like Future Sight is a bit overkill considering you already have Psychic fast move damage that is pretty good. Next up you got Claydol with Confusion, Earth Power, and Psychic. Psychic is a new debuff move recently, and Earth Power gives you great coverage against the Steel types. Gardevoir with Confusion, Shadow Ball, and the Legacy charge move Synchronoise. Synchronoise was the Legacy charge move from the recent Community Day for Ralts, and I do think you're going to need that, otherwise you'd have to go with Psychic, which isn't bad, but Synchronoise is better for PvP sakes. Gallade with Confusion, Leaf Blade, and Close Combat. Leaf Blade gives you great coverage against the sub-ground Steel types, and water fighters like Poliwrath and Empoleon in the Steel type category as well. It is also important to note that Gallade is a Psychic fighting type, so it is going to melt to opposing other Confusion users, so take that into account. Bronzong with Confusion, Psyshock, and Bulldoze. Bulldoze gives you great coverage against the opposing Steel types. And then finally we have Girafarig with Confusion, Thunderbolt, and Psychic, and it is a bit of a sneaky pick. Girafarig is a Psychic normal type, Therefore, its normal typing resists ghost type damage. You could pretty much go unscathed against ghost types, unlike the other Confusion users. Its Thunderbolt coverage is great against something like Poliwrath or Empoleon, and Thunderbolt actually does decent damage to something like Steelix too, believe it or not. Psychic is the new debuff move as of a couple days ago, so that is great as opposed to something like Mirror Coat before this meta shakeup. So Girafarig definitely got a decent boost. Things that's notable in here is Cresselia will need to be traded to reach under 1500 CP. So if you're wanting to run Cresselia, you're going to need to trade it and hope that it rolls under. It needs to go to bad IVs. And yeah. Next up, we have the Fighter category. With Poliwrath, you could run Bubble or Mud Shot, and then Power Up Punch for sure as a charge move, and then either Ice Punch or Hydro Pump. Honestly, I'm going to tell you right away that Bubble is definitely the better move for Poliwrath. Mudshot is good energy gain, but Bubble gives you super effective damage against the Steels, against several of the Confusion users. It's just great. Power Up Punch, of course, is essential. Ice Punch and Hydro Pump would really be based off of matchup needed that you need for your fighter. Now Medicham. Medicham with Counter, Power Up Punch, and Ice Punch. It's becoming a little bit more debatable that Ice Punch could go to Psychic, now that it's a debuff move. But for now, I'm going to say that Counter, Power Up Punch, and Ice Punch is still the way to go. And the way I would see Medicham is it's just specifically a hard counter for the Steel types, mainly Bastiodon and Steelix. Third on this category, we have Primeape with Counter, Legacy Charge Move Cross Chop, and Night Slash. Yes, you need Legacy Cross Chop for Primeape to be viable. It is fantastic, it's very spammy, and it pairs along great with the Dark type move Night Slash that gives you good coverage against Confusion users. So as you can imagine, Primeape is pretty good if you get your hands on it, so definitely be on the lookout for Legacy Primeape. And in the final main category, we have the Steel types. Steelix with Dragon Tail or the newly obtained Thunderfang quick move, and then Earthquake and Crunch. Dragon Tail is the better fast move, whereas Thunderfang essentially basically allows you to beat Poliwrath, but actually loses you a few other matchups in the end. So Dragon Tail, I'm going to say, is better, but Thunderfang can be viable depending on how your team composition is. Next up, we have Bastiodon with Smackdown, Stone Edge, and Flamethrower. Fantastic Mon. Not much to say about it. He's great against all the ghost types, especially Drifblim and Haunter. And he can beat a few of the Confusion users, depending on the matchup. Next on the block, we have Empoleon with Waterfall, Flash Cannon, and Hydro Pump. And Empoleon's great because it's able to counter both Steelix and Alola Marowak, which are bound to be two of the best Pokemon in this cup, with its Waterfall damage especially. But it does take a while to get to Flash Cannon or Hydro Pump, so I will tell you that much. It also really needs to watch out for the fighters and some of the electric type users like Girafarig and Alolan Raichu. Lastly, in the Steel type category, we have Mawile with the fast move Bite, Power Up Punch, and Play Rough. Now Bite is a dark type fast move, so that gives you great coverage against the sub-psychic types, and that's really awesome. Power Up Punch allows you to do well against opposing Steel types, including the mirror match against other Mawiles. And Play Rough is great against the fighters, the Confusion users, and one thing to note is Bite is also good against the ghost types as well, so it's pretty much good against everything. However, it is a tad bit glassy and it's really expensive to make. You have to come close to maxing it, and it's 75k for the extra charge move, so keep that noted. But it is a fantastic mon, just a little bit glassy. Now we have the outside the meta picks, basically meaning the wild cards in Alolan Raichu and Lugia. Alolan Raichu recently obtained Thundershock, which was really just a really good energy building fast move. Alolan Raichu was already spammy as it was before, and now Wild Charge and Thunder Punch are going to be coming faster than ever, so you could really hard counter a team that's using both Poliwrath and Empoleon. And it actually does great damage against Steelix too. I know I've said that with Thunderbolt and Girafarig, but for some reason electric type damage does really well against Steelix. It's strange, but it does work. Next up, Lugia with Dragon Tail, Sky Attack, and Hydro Pump. And there's not much to say about it other than Sky Attack does well against the fighters, and Hydro Pump gives you great coverage against the steel typing. The Dragon Tail damage is pretty good for neutral damage against the ghost types and the opposing Confusion users. However, the ghost type is going to pretty much hard counter Lugia pretty well, but it is nice that Lugia is decently bulky. And one thing to remember about Lugia, much like Cresselia, is it does need to be traded down and hope to go to bad IVs in order to reach under 1500 CP. So if you're wanting Lugia in the Great League, make sure you reach out to some people who got it from a research box, and hope that your friendship level isn't that high, because if you're not too high, you have a better chance at getting under 1500. With all that being said, we are pretty much finished with the general meta of the Sinister Cup. I'm going to be going into each of these Pokemon as much as I can and providing some footage of each. So look forward to that. And I want to thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.